Bonjour everyone, Pantoufleee here today in a new video in which we have the pleasure of talking about the T110E5, that Tech 3 Tier 10 American heavy tank that for most is becoming totally useless. The main subject of that video is to see if yes or no it's true that this tank is just bad compared to other Tier 10 heavies, because obviously with the improval of tanks in general since the 9.1 updates, buffs, nerfs, etc. But also because, well, it's a tank that is quite old because it was one of the few first Tier 10 heavy tank being implemented into the game. And obviously, when you take a look at the tech tree right now, when it started, it was like 4 or 5 Tier 10 and no Tier 10 premium. And nowadays, we have more than 50, nearly 60 lines. So yeah, it's logic that this tank got through some changes, but also that it got downgraded over time. But what is it really worth it? Let's check it out. The main complaint people have over the T110E5 is the fact that it's supposed to be heavily armored on the turret, but you still can penetrate, especially those areas when the tank is facing directly to you. Of course, it's problematic because usually the heavy tanks from the American branch are known to have those crazy turrets. For the whole line, when you will play the T29, the T32, except maybe the M103, but all of them don't have that much weak spots on the turret, or at least they are not so obvious that it becomes easy to penetrate. And of course, on top of that, you have this cupola that can be quite upsetting sometimes, knowing that most tanks, or most heavy tanks those days, do not have such weaknesses. But if you put that aside, you still have 8 degrees of gun depression, and if you just use your tank regularly without staying right in front of your opponents and without trying to move your turret, then yeah, you still have some chances to bounce off and therefore not get that problem becoming the worst nightmare when you're playing the tank. The other statistics are not so bad as well. When you take a look at the engine, for example, you can climb up to 42 kilometers per hour, which means that you will get into aggressive position fast enough for you to kind of direct the battle where you want it to go. And at the same time, the gun that was once one of the craziest on heavies became a little bit less performing when they decided to nerf the reload time. Because back in my days, I feel so old when I say that, but it was like 8.3 seconds of reload, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 8.7. And now you are sitting down at close to 9.4 seconds, which gives you a bad DPM if compared to the best and most competitive Tier 10 heavy tanks. And even if at first we all thought that it was the end for the T110E5, I still find it enjoyable to play, not on a regular basis, but from time to time when you want to differ from the other heavy tanks. The main thing right now is that the playstyle changed a little bit. Before all the nerfs it went through, this tank was supposed to be a brawler. You were first line, you could handle shots, you could just fight off everything. And unfortunately, the Type 71, the brand last and new Tier 10 Japanese Tech 3 heavy tank, became that tank. And now you're kind of rely, I don't know how we say this, but now you're forced to go to second place. You are not the knight in shining armor you once used to be. But is it really problematic? No. All you have to do is learning your place and you should be good. And this is exactly what happened in this game. As I'm playing with the T110E5, I could totally jump on those guys thinking that I'm invincible. And instead of doing so, I'm just gonna try to find the right position. And the right position when you're playing with the T110E5 is obviously to only show your turrets to your opponents, because if you do so, you shouldn't get bothered too much. And here is something quite interesting I talked about when I first showed you the problem of the armor on the turret. I stayed in front of that T110E5 without moving because I was also expecting to penetrate his weak spot. Unfortunately, I aimed a little bit too high, otherwise it would have been a penetration. And his shell went straight into my turret. Why? Because I was not trying to move my turret. I was not trying to wiggle. I was not trying maybe to use my tracks to go backward, frontward, backward, frontward. And of course, when you don't do these kind of things, you will get penetrated, specifically with gold shells. So be aware that if you want to acquire a T110E5, you will have to do those kind of moves. But let's go back to the main subject. Instead of pushing through and going on the T110E5, I decided to stay in the back. There is the Type 71 that is the tank that should go in, and I'm just waiting for him to go in. I mean, we are not in a rush. They are camping on their positions as much as we are camping on ours, and it's for the best. I'm not gonna bother. We are good, and that's it. And on top of that, we have the advantage of the hill, because it's a much better position, specifically in the T110E5, to be up a hill and therefore using your 8 degrees of gun depression to fight whatever is in front of you, rather than being the one at the bottom of the hill, because of course, if I climb the hill, I have your whole turret roof exposed, and obviously it will just be a crazy penetration, an easy penetration, call it whatever you want. So, is it still worth it to get the T110E5? In my opinion, yes, because it's still performing well. It's not a broken tank, it's just an average heavy, but it will learn you a lot of things. First, it will learn you not to be overconfident using your heavies, because I don't know how many times I see people at tier 7, tier 8 that are just thinking that their tanks are invincible just because they paid for it, or just because they seem to have a lot of armor, aesthetically talking. And this is obviously a big no. You do not want, only based on your armor, to rush alone 4 tanks or 5 tanks. Even the most broken tank of the game is not capable of handling a 1 versus 4 frontally. So don't try these kind of things and stay at your place. And for that, the T110E5 can help you quite a lot. Now there is a second thing we need to understand about this tank. The fact that, as it's an American tank, it's definitely known to have a good frontal armor, but the sides are total shit. Which means that even if you angle just the slightest, you will get penetrated on the side, and that's where the munitions are located, on top of frontally the 2 parts on the hull on each side, the top of each sides. But as long as you do not try to angle at all and stay in front of your opponents using an all-down position, you should be set up, which means that the playstyle is actually pretty simple. Because I talked with people, I talked with subscribers, some of them telling me, Pantoufleee, the T110E5 is just not for me, I don't know how to play it, but to be fair with you, there is nothing hard. If you know how to play a nice 3, you know how to play a T110E5, as long as you don't side scrape. If you know how to play Type 71, you know how to play T110E5. There is not much to know about the game. It's more of how you are going to read the map, and if you already know some hold down spots, rather than the tank itself. And the T110E5 is the perfect example. Now, for talking about the replay a little bit, you saw that for the whole replay we stayed at the right place, only showing our turret, and it's only at the end, when we know that we don't have the choice, that we are going in. On top of that, we are in a 2 versus 1 situation, which means that we can confidently try something. But at the same time, that T62A just nearly finished that port Type 71, which implies that it's my turn to go in. I have 886 hit points, he has 310 alpha damage, I can stack 3 shots before dying, and my intention are effectively to stack those shots if we manage to snap a shot, but yeah, you can't do what you want all the time. But that guy's kind of stuck. If I was the T62A and I knew that one of them was 1 shot, now that we're currently spotted, I would obviously try something straight on the Type 71 without bothering with the T110E5. But the guy, for whatever reason, decided to stay in his place, which is possibly the worst thing you can do in this situation, because now you are perm spot and there is one of us that is going to push you and the other that is going to snap some shells at you. And obviously it's gonna end bad for that poor T62A, knowing that it went from 1.2k hit points to only 400 if we round it up. And yeah, that's the end. I'm just waiting to be able to snap an HE, just not to get bothered by a low alpha damage gun or shot, and bang, we got the victory. We got 6.2k damage, and with it, we got an ace tanker. And obviously, if you still manage to get ace tankers, it means that the tank is still worth it. You just need to relearn how to play it. Do not try to push really hardcore. Try to stay with some of your allies. Make sure that you're not necessarily the one that is getting attacked H24. Maybe try to do some passes to the Type 71 or to whatever other heavy tank is with you. And if you do so, I feel like you should be able to play the T110E5 correctly and maybe even try and finally manage to enjoy it. Hopefully you enjoyed. If that's the case, feel free to subscribe, like, and share. Tell me in the comments what you think about the T110E5 currently, and hopefully I'm gonna see you soon for a new video. Bye.